Put your phone or device aside as you listen into this audio story. Best for when you're on the move, resting, or going to bed at night. We release new stories daily. Like and subscribe to not miss out. There's a file that venture capitalists don't want you to see. It contains depositions from fired executives, leaked emails that never made headlines, and testimony from engineers who watched their life's work claimed by someone else. Inside that file is a single question that haunts Silicon Valley. What if the greatest entrepreneur of our generation isn't actually an entrepreneur at all? What if he's something far more disturbing? A master manipulator who built two of the world's most valuable companies on the backs of forgotten founders, broken promises, and a carefully constructed mythology that the world desperately wanted to believe. Tonight, we're opening that file. And what you're about to discover about how Elon Musk really built Tesla and SpaceX will change everything you thought you knew about wealth, power, and the dark side of the American dream. The year is 2004, and Martin Eberhard is about to make the worst mistake of his life. He's sitting in a sterile conference room in San Carlos, California, presenting his revolutionary electric car company to potential investors. Tesla Motors has a prototype, a vision, and desperately needs capital. Across the table sits a 33-year-old dot-com millionaire with a peculiar intensity in his eyes. Someone who just made a fortune selling PayPal and is hungry for his next conquest. Elon Musk listens carefully, asks technical questions, and by the end of the meeting, writes a check for $6.5 million. He becomes Tesla's largest shareholder and chairman of the board. What Eberhard doesn't know, what he can't possibly know, is that he's just invited a cuckoo into his nest. Within 3 years, his name will be systematically erased from the company he founded. The world will be told a different story entirely. But before Tesla, there was another takeover. Another founder pushed aside. Another company's origin story rewritten in real time. In 2002, Elon Musk was worth roughly $180 million from the PayPal sale. And he was restless. Not content. Restless. There's a difference, and that difference would define everything that followed. He became obsessed with an idea that seemed insane to everyone around him. Private space exploration. The billionaire secrets of Silicon Valley whispered that Musk was losing his mind, throwing his fortune into a fantasy. But Musk had studied something that others had missed. A loophole in physics, economics, and human ambition. Rockets were expensive because they were disposable. Aerospace companies had no incentive to make them cheaper because they were cost-plus contractors feeding from the government trough. If someone could build reusable rockets with a lean software company culture instead of a defense contractor mentality, they could undercut the entire industry. It was a business crime waiting to happen. Not illegal, but it would destroy the old guard completely. Musk started recruiting. And here's where the story gets dark. He approached Tom Miller, a genius propulsion engineer working at TRW, one of the aerospace establishment's sacred institutions. Miller was experimenting with rocket engines in his garage on weekends, a hobby that would become the foundation of SpaceX's success. Musk didn't just hire Muller. He identified him as the technical co-founder SpaceX needed, then structured the company in a way that would later allow Musk to claim sole founder status. Muller became employee number 1, not co-founder. The corporate documents were clear. One founder, one vision, one name that would be associated with every achievement. This wasn't an accident. This was a pattern, a business strategy disguised as ego, and it was just beginning. SpaceX's early days were a masterclass in wealth and power dynamics that business schools don't teach. Musk moved the company to a converted warehouse in El Segundo, near Los Angeles International Airport, and drove his engineers like modern-day galley slaves. 100-hour work weeks became standard. Sleeping under desks was encouraged, even celebrated as dedication. Those who couldn't keep up were discarded without ceremony. Former employees would later describe a culture of psychological warfare, public humiliation for minor mistakes, impossible deadlines designed to break spirits, and a revolving door of talent that normalized the brutality. But here's the disturbing genius of it. It worked. The young engineers who survived became true believers, bonded by shared trauma and the intoxicating belief that they were part of something historic. Musk had discovered something sinister about human nature: push people beyond their limits, dangle a revolutionary vision in front of them, and they'll destroy themselves willingly in service of your dream. The first three. Falcon 1 rockets failed spectacularly. 2006, explosion at liftoff. 2007, rocket tumbling out of control. 2008, collision between first and second stages. Each failure cost tens of millions of dollars. Each failure brought SpaceX closer to bankruptcy. By mid-2008, Musk was burning through capital at an unsustainable rate, and the financial mystery everyone wondered about was simple. How long could he keep this going? The answer involved a moral calculation that few entrepreneurs would make. Musk was simultaneously running Tesla, which was hemorrhaging cash even faster than SpaceX. Both companies were dying. He had one move left, and it required sacrificing everything, including the truth about his personal life, which was collapsing in parallel with his business empire. Now we return to Tesla, where Martin Eberhard's nightmare was reaching its crescendo. The corporate scandal unfolding behind closed doors would become a template for modern founder displacement. By 2007, Tesla was struggling to bring the Roadster to production. Costs were ballooning. Technical challenges mounted. The company was bleeding money, and Musk, as chairman and primary investor, was becoming increasingly involved in daily operations. Board meetings grew contentious. Musk questioned every decision Eberhard made, undermined his authority with other executives, and began building a parallel power structure within the company. In August 2007, Eberhard was removed as CEO, not fired, carefully note the language, but transitioned to president of technology. 2 months later, he was gone entirely, escorted out of the building he had founded. The backroom deals that preceded this moment were Machiavellian in their precision. Musk had systematically convinced other board members that Eberhard was the problem, not the ambitious electric car timeline or the funding structure. It was character assassination dressed up as fiduciary responsibility. But here's where the story takes a turn into territory that defines the entrepreneurship secrets of the ultra-successful. Musk didn't just want to control Tesla. He wanted to be Tesla. In 2009, Musk and Eberhard reached a settlement that allowed Musk to call himself a co-founder, not the founder. A co-founder, along with Eberhard, Mark Tarpenning, J.B. Straubel, and Ian Wright. Yet somehow, through careful public relations, strategic media placements, and the sheer force of his growing celebrity, Musk became the founder in the public consciousness. Wikipedia pages were edited. Interviews emphasized his vision. Articles began their Tesla origin stories with Musk's investment, not Eberhard's incorporation. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was historical, a systematic erasure that would define how the world understood the electric car revolution. This is how billionaire secrets become accepted facts. Repeat a story enough times from a position of power, and reality itself begins to bend. September 28, 2008, SpaceX's fourth Falcon 1 launch. This is the moment where mythology and reality collided in the Pacific Ocean. The company had one rocket left, one chance, and almost no money remaining. Employees gathered around monitors in El Segundo, watching telemetry data from Omelek Island in the Marshall Islands. The rocket lifted off perfectly. First stage separation, flawless. Second stage ignition, nominal. For 9 agonizing minutes, 300 tons of metal and dreams climbed toward orbit, while a company's entire future hung in the balance. When the payload reached orbit, when that blip appeared on screens confirming success, grown engineers wept openly. It was the first privately funded liquid fuel rocket to reach orbit in history. But here's what the celebration montages never show. If that rocket had failed, SpaceX would have closed its doors within weeks. There was no backup plan, no additional funding secured. Musk had bet everything on a single roll of the dice, and the hidden cost of success was that hundreds of engineers had sacrificed years of their lives, their relationships, their health, for a binary outcome they couldn't control. The stock market secrets of startup success often ignore this truth. For every SpaceX that makes it, dozens of companies extract the same brutal sacrifice from employees and simply fail anyway. The workers are just as broken, but there's no revolutionary company to justify their trauma. Now we need to talk about what happened at Tesla during that same period, because this is where the story reveals its most unsettling truth. In 2008, Tesla was approximately 2 weeks from bankruptcy. Musk had taken over as CEO after Eberhard's removal, and the company was burning through cash faster than anyone could have predicted. The financial crisis had frozen credit markets. Investors were fleeing risk. Musk was simultaneously funding SpaceX's last-ditch rocket attempt and trying to keep Tesla alive. His personal fortune was nearly exhausted. Here's what the business documentary footage never captures. Musk was going through a devastating divorce from his first wife, Justine. He was sleeping on friends' couches. He was having panic attacks. But more disturbingly, he was making calculations about which company to save if he could only save one. Internal emails from this period, revealed years later in legal proceedings, show a man performing triage on his own dreams, deciding which would live and which would die based on cold financial logic. The money and greed narrative misses something essential. Musk wasn't motivated primarily by wealth at this point. He already had money. He was motivated by something more dangerous, a pathological need to be remembered, to be the singular figure who changed human history. That kind of ambition doesn't just drive people to success. It drives them to do things that most humans wouldn't, to sacrifice relationships and ethics and other people's lives in service of a vision that exists only in their head. December 2008. Tesla's financing round closed on Christmas Eve. It was the last possible moment. The company literally could not have made payroll in January without this money. Musk personally invested his last available dollars, approximately $40 million, into the round. If Tesla had failed, he would have been financially destroyed, unable to maintain his lifestyle or fund any future ventures. But here's the part that reveals the secret alliances and power plays happening beneath the surface. The US government had already been in quiet negotiations with Tesla about a Department of Energy loan. Political winds were shifting toward green technology. The Obama administration was incoming. Musk had been cultivating relationships with policymakers, selling them on a vision of American manufacturing and energy independence. When Tesla received a $465 million loan from the DOE in 2010, it wasn't just good fortune. It was the result of a sophisticated lobbying effort that had been in motion for over a year. This is the real business thriller hiding inside the Tesla story. Musk had simultaneously convinced private investors and government officials that Tesla was too important to fail, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where belief in success became actual success. It was financial engineering as psychological manipulation, and it worked flawlessly. SpaceX, meanwhile, was experiencing its own mysterious rescue. On December 23, 2008, one day before Tesla's financing closed, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract for cargo delivery to the International Space Station. The timing seems almost impossibly convenient. 2 dying companies, 2 massive cash infusions, same week. Conspiracy theorists have suggested coordination, but the truth is more banal and more disturbing. Musk had become too valuable to the American space program to be allowed to fail. NASA was desperate for an alternative to Russian rockets, and SpaceX was the only viable option. The agency didn't save SpaceX because they believed in Elon Musk. They saved SpaceX because geopolitics demanded it, and Musk just happened to be the figurehead attached to the technology they needed. This reveals something crucial about how modern wealth and power actually operates. Individual genius matters far less than being in the right place with the right technology when macro forces align in your favor. Musk was brilliant, yes, but he was also catastrophically lucky, and the mythology that's been built around him carefully omits the luck while amplifying the brilliance. The 2010s became Musk's decade of transformation, from struggling entrepreneur to global icon. But the dark side of that transformation deserves examination. Tesla started delivering the Model S in 2012, and the vehicle was genuinely revolutionary, combining performance, luxury, and electric power in ways that made traditional automakers look foolish. But production was chaos. The factory in Fremont was plagued by quality issues, worker injuries, and systematic labor violations that would later trigger investigations. Employees reported being pressured to work through injuries, to skip safety protocols to meet deadlines, to accept conditions that would never be tolerated in traditional automotive plants. When workers attempted to unionize, they faced intimidation and retaliation that labor groups called illegal. Musk's tweets attacking the union were found by the National Labor Relations Board to be unlawful. The business crime here wasn't dramatic, no fraud, no embezzlement, just the slow, grinding exploitation of workers who were told they were building the future while being denied basic protections in the present. This is the danger of unchecked ambition. It creates a permission structure where labor laws become obstacles to destiny rather than protections for human beings. SpaceX's corporate culture, meanwhile, had calcified into something resembling a cult. Former employees describe an environment where questioning Musk's technical decisions was career suicide, where managers demanded impossible timelines and blamed workers when physics didn't cooperate, where sexual harassment complaints were routinely dismissed or ignored if the accused was considered technically valuable. A 2021 essay by former SpaceX executive Ashley Kosak detailed systematic failures to address harassment and assault, creating a real-life business story that contradicted the heroic narrative. The company's HR department seemed designed not to protect employees, but to protect the company from employees. Non-disclosure agreements were wielded like weapons, ensuring that those who left couldn't speak publicly about what they'd experienced. This is how corporate greed manifests in the modern era, not through obvious theft, but through the systematic extraction of human dignity and well-being in exchange for participation in something historic. But the most disturbing pattern only becomes clear when you step back and look at the full picture of both companies over the past decade. Musk has mastered something that explains his unprecedented success and reveals a frightening truth about modern capitalism. He's learned to weaponize public attention as a form of capital more valuable than money. Every tweet, every controversial statement, every appearance on Joe Rogan smoking weed or hosting Saturday Night Live. These aren't distractions from his business strategy. They are the business strategy. Traditional companies spend billions on advertising. Tesla spends almost nothing because Musk himself is a constant content generation machine, commanding media attention that would cost competitors fortunes to purchase. But here's the manipulation buried inside this approach. By making himself synonymous with his companies, Musk has created a situation where criticizing Tesla or SpaceX feels like a personal attack on a man millions admire. Journalists who write negative articles face Twitter mobs. Short sellers are portrayed as enemies of progress rather than market participants. Whistleblowers are dismissed as disgruntled former employees. The psychological insights here are profound. Musk has built a reality distortion field that protects his companies from normal scrutiny by transforming business criticism into cultural warfare. The fraud and deception accusations that have periodically surfaced tell their own story. In 2018, Musk tweeted that he had funding secured to take Tesla private at $420 per share, causing the stock to spike. He didn't have funding secured. The SEC charged him with securities fraud, and he settled by paying a fine and stepping down as chairman while remaining CEO. But the settlement changed nothing about his behavior. He continued tweeting market-moving statements, continued pushing legal boundaries, continued operating as if rules that constrained others simply didn't apply to him. And remarkably, he's largely been proven correct. The rules apparently don't apply. Not really. Not when you're valuable enough to the government and beloved enough by retail investors who will defend you regardless of what regulators say. This is the unsettling truth at the heart of the Elon Musk story. He's demonstrated that with sufficient public support and strategic importance, you can operate partially outside normal legal and ethical constraints. It's not that he breaks laws with impunity. It's that the consequences of breaking laws become just another business expense, absorbed and forgotten while the underlying behavior continues. SpaceX's rise has been even more dramatic and, in some ways, more troubling. The company now dominates commercial spaceflight, regularly launches astronauts to the ISS, and is building Starship, the largest rocket ever constructed. It's a genuine achievement that has transformed aerospace. But it's also created a monopoly power that should terrify anyone who understands the danger of concentrated control over critical infrastructure. SpaceX handles the majority of U.S. government satellite launches. Its Starlink constellation is becoming the dominant player in satellite internet, with explicit plans to operate tens of thousands of satellites. Musk personally controls the company. It's not publicly traded, has no meaningful board oversight, and operates with minimal transparency. This means that one individual with documented impulse control issues and a pattern of erratic behavior has unprecedented control over space access, military launch capacity, and potentially global communications infrastructure. The rise and fall pattern that dominates business history suggests this concentration of power is inherently unstable. But the fall hasn't come yet, and every day Musk's position becomes more entrenched. The strategy, manipulation, decision-making that built these empires followed a consistent pattern. Identify existential problems that governments and markets have failed to solve. Build companies that address those problems with ruthless efficiency and total disregard for human cost. Cultivate a public image that makes you seem like humanity's savior rather than a brutal CEO. And leverage that image to secure government support that ensures your companies become too important to fail. It's a playbook that only works if you're willing to sacrifice everything and everyone in service of the vision, including your own mental health, your marriages, your children's relationships with you, and especially the thousands of employees who burn out in your wake. Most people aren't willing to make those sacrifices, which is why most people don't build companies like Tesla and SpaceX. The question we should be asking isn't, how did Musk succeed? But rather, what kind of society creates incentives that reward this pattern of behavior? Tesla is now worth over $500 billion. SpaceX is valued at approximately $180 billion. Combined, these companies have made Elon Musk the wealthiest person in human history, with a net worth that has peaked above $300 billion. The numbers are so large they lose meaning, so let me provide context. If you earned $5,000 per day, every single day, since Columbus reached the Americas in 1492, you still wouldn't have $1 billion. Musk has more than 300 times that amount. This wealth wasn't created in a vacuum. It was extracted from government subsidies, labor exploitation, supplier relationships that crushed smaller companies, and a stock market that values growth potential over present reality. The hidden cost of success here is measured in broken people, failed marriages, children who barely know their father, workers with permanent injuries, engineers who left the industry entirely after their experience, and competitors who were driven out of business by a company willing to lose money indefinitely because its stock price didn't care about quarterly profits. But perhaps the darkest element of this entire story is how it's changed what success means in American culture. Musk has inspired a generation of entrepreneurs who believe that the only way to build something important is to sacrifice everything, work 100-hour weeks, demand the same from employees, move fast and break things, including people. Business schools now teach the Musk model of vertical integration and aggressive timelines. Young engineers dream of joining SpaceX, despite the known cultural problems, because the mission seems to justify the suffering. The moral collapse this represents is subtle, but profound. We've normalized the idea that building the future requires destroying people in the present, and we've elevated the destroyers to hero status as long as the vision is compelling enough. This is the real business scandal documentary that needs to be made. Not about one man, but about the entire system that created the incentives for his behavior and rewarded it so spectacularly that others rush to imitate it. There's a story that employees tell about Musk, whether at Tesla or SpaceX, that captures something essential. When he walks the factory floor or visits a launch site, people instinctively tense up, wondering if they'll be the one publicly humiliated that day. He has a habit of asking technical questions designed to expose ignorance, of demanding instant solutions to complex problems, of firing people on the spot who can't provide satisfactory answers. But occasionally, rarely but memorably, he'll engage with someone who challenges him, who pushes back with data, who doesn't wilt under pressure. Those people sometimes rise rapidly in his organization, earning his respect through combat rather than deference. The pattern suggests something about his worldview. He respects strength, but views kindness as weakness, values brutal honesty over emotional intelligence, sees relationships as transactional rather than reciprocal. It's a philosophy that works brilliantly for building rockets and cars. It's a philosophy that creates wreckage when applied to human relationships, families, and social responsibility. And it's a philosophy that an alarming number of people now admire and attempt to emulate, having witnessed the extraordinary wealth it generated without fully understanding the price. So we return to the question from the beginning. Is Elon Musk actually an entrepreneur, or is he something else entirely? The evidence suggests he's a new kind of business entity that we don't have good language for yet. Part founder, part acquirer, part brand, part media manipulation machine, part government contractor, part cultural phenomenon. He didn't invent electric cars or reusable rockets, but he did build companies that made both commercially viable through a combination of technical insight, brutal execution, strategic government partnerships, and reality distortion at unprecedented scale. The betrayal inside boardrooms, the systematic erasure of other founders, the exploitation of workers, the weaponization of public attention. These aren't flaws in the system that created his success. They are the system. This is how modern billionaire wealth gets built. Not through clean innovation and fair competition, but through finding the gaps between what's legal, what's ethical, and what's socially acceptable. Then operating ruthlessly in those gaps, while cultivating an image compelling enough that the public forgives or ignores the moral compromises. Martin Eberhard, the Tesla founder who was erased from his own company's history, eventually received his settlement and moved on to other ventures. He speaks occasionally about the experience, always carefully, always aware that non-disclosure agreements limit what he can say. Tom Mueller, the propulsion genius who became SpaceX employee number 1 instead of co-founder, retired in 2020 after helping build the most successful rocket company in history. Wealthy, certainly, but without the public recognition that his role deserved. The thousands of other engineers, workers, employees who sacrificed years of their lives building these companies have mostly disappeared into obscurity, their contributions absorbed into the singular narrative of one man's vision. This is the secret alliance at the heart of modern entrepreneurship. Genius leaders need armies of talented people to execute their visions, but the mythology of success demands a single hero. So the armies must be written out of the story, even as their labor creates the reality. Tesla and SpaceX will continue to dominate headlines, break records, and shape the future of transportation and space exploration. Elon Musk will continue to be praised as a visionary, attacked as a charlatan, defended by millions, and investigated by regulators. The truth, as always, is more complex and more disturbing than either the hagiographies or the hit pieces suggest. He built something real. 2 companies that have genuinely changed their industries and accomplished things that experts said were impossible. But he built them using methods that should trouble anyone who believes in fair dealing, labor rights, truth in advertising, and the importance of distributing credit to those who deserve it. The price of success in this case was paid by thousands of people whose names you'll never know, who believed in the mission enough to let themselves be consumed by it, who traded their youth and health and relationships for the chance to be part of something historic. And here's the final darkness at the center of this story. It's not clear that any of this was avoidable. Building an electric car company and a rocket company from scratch, competing against entrenched industries with infinite lobbying power and government connections, surviving the 2008 financial crisis that destroyed far better capitalized companies. Perhaps this level of success genuinely required someone willing to operate outside normal ethical constraints, to sacrifice people without hesitation, to construct a mythology so compelling that it became self-reinforcing reality. Maybe the dark side of business isn't an aberration, but the actual engine of revolutionary change, and we just prefer not to look directly at it. Maybe every transformation comes with hidden costs that we only calculate in retrospect, and the bill always comes due in human suffering that gets footnoted in the history books. That file we mentioned at the beginning, the one venture capitalists don't want you to see, it's still there, still growing, still accumulating testimony from people who saw how this all really worked from the inside. The depositions, the leaked emails, the settlement agreements with their NDAs attached. They tell a consistent story that contradicts the mythology. But mythology is more powerful than truth when it comes to shaping markets, inspiring workers, and building the kind of irrational optimism that allows impossible things to become real. Elon Musk understood this better than anyone. Control the narrative, and you control reality itself. Build companies that people desperately want to believe in, and they'll forgive almost anything. Make yourself synonymous with the future, and criticism of your methods becomes opposition to progress itself. So tonight, as you look at a Tesla driving silently down your street, or watch a SpaceX rocket lighting up the sky on another mission to orbit, remember, you're not just seeing technological achievement. You're seeing the culmination of thousands of individual compromises, millions of hours of uncompensated overtime, systematic erasure of inconvenient truths, and the transformation of one man's pathological need for historical significance into companies that genuinely might change human civilization. The question that should keep you awake isn't whether Elon Musk is a genius or a fraud. He's clearly both, in proportions that shift depending on which day you're measuring. The question is whether we're comfortable with the bargain we've made, trading labor rights, truth, fairness, and human dignity for revolutionary technology and the promise of a better future. Because that's the deal that built Tesla and SpaceX. That's the dark secret at the heart of modern entrepreneurship. And that's the file that will keep growing, one broken person at a time, as long as we continue to celebrate the results while ignoring the methods that produced them. The empire was built. The question is, what did we actually buy, and who really paid the price? Subscribe and listen to our next story below.